Before we start the basically conversation, I just want to give you quick context for the session. So, if you look at India is at the pivotal moment in AI journey. We are no longer debating whether AI can shape the future, but how it will be architect, deployed, and governed, and at a scale is uniquely defined for the Indian context. From deep science and manufacturing to digital public infrastructure, enterprise adoption. India's advantages are becoming very, very clear, which is talent density, data scale, cost efficiency, and growing ecosystems of the builders who are actually operating across the AI value chain. The question now is how this trend translate into the some of the durable platforms, globally competitive companies, and real world impact at a larger scale. This panel bring together leaders and pioneering operators who are actually critically building, or you can say part of the largest tech, which is deep tech and AI. We have digital public infrastructure, AI native cloud, and compute and enterprise governance. Through this conversation, we will explore uh, where India can create advantages, which are the basically white spaces, are basically you can say untapped, and why scaling AI from pilot to production remains hard despite growing momentum in India. Most importantly, we also explore what it will take technically, organizationally, or you can say institutionally for India to move from promise to a leader in AI native era. Thanks everyone for joining this panel. I'll start with Sravanth. Sravanth, you are very closely working with government, and in fact, the recent outcome or the engagement you started doing is on unified AI layer, which is as described as a UPI moment for artificial intelligence, right? And if you look at even a government view this as a very critical digital public infrastructure, they are very excited about it. If you can little bit talk about the either framework architecture of this particular platform, and how this will democratize AI use cases, specifically focus on uh, enterprise, SME, or larger citizen of India.
Yep. To start with, a very good morning, guys. I'm a bit sleepy, so bear with me. Time zones, but just to answer your question, I actually think that India really needs to now think about productivity unlock. It's time we've moved beyond benchmarks and putting some models out there in some toy-like case studies, right? We really need to start thinking about unlocking dollar impact, or rather rupee impact, in the Indian context. And I think it's a need of the hour, given where we stand today. So what the government's really done is they've already done a brilliant job on India AI mission. There are data sets that they've funded. There are models that they've funded which have intelligence and reasoning capabilities today. A lot of good companies working on that. And there is also compute infrastructure that they've kind of brought together. These are pretty much the fuel and the engine that you need to build a Ferrari. So what we're kind of doing is emulating what, say, Nandunilakani and team did with the UPI, where payments got democratized across everyone, right? You didn't necessarily need to be digitally savvy for you to be able to be a beneficiary of that capability. So what we're trying to do is convert all of these intelligence and reasoning capabilities into something that a farmer could use, something that, say, while filing your taxes might benefit you, something that, say, a MSME or an enterprise could access at a reasonable cost delta to, say, at population scale, guys, we will have to democratize cost. We will have to democratize access. And the government, with the compute that they have, is thinking of inference engines to put India into that hyperdrive. So coming back to your question, what Avataar is effectively doing is connecting all of the dots, being a platform, and eventually this would show up as, say you want to create a marketing video as a marketer in a company. We'll have our own indigenous distilled model. It would be probably 1/3 the cost of China, basis early results that we're seeing. And that would be needed for us to probably go to the last mile of a citizen who's looking for it, right? Especially the lower end of the small, medium enterprises would probably not be able to afford today the costs involved in a large language model. So that's effectively the vision. I don't want to take all the mind share, so I'm going to pass things on, but that's where we play a role.
Thanks. So I'll now go to the Karan. Karan, at Neysa, you are effectively at a ground zero of AI development or deployment, basically, right? And you are basically working with the very different stakeholders or creating the use case. So if you can talk about at a Neysa perspective, like which are some of the use cases Neysa is basically right now empowering in India. If you can also might be take an example and give us or walk through one of the company's example around someone is using Neysa products and creating the product on top of it.
So yeah, that's a great question. It's very difficult for what we are as a neocloud, right? We allow clients to deploy their AI native use cases on our GPUs, tier 4 data centers, the latest generation of GPUs, um, as a sovereign neocloud in the country. When it comes to the kind of clients that we would typically work with, it's anybody who meets that criteria. Ashwani's, his organization, what they're doing with Productive, Nicolas, is an early founder and investor in Mistral, which is one of the world's leading frontier labs. What Sravanth's doing with Avataar. Everyone is going to need to either train or fine tune or to be able to infer models. What a neocloud like Neysa does, as part of what we call our Velocis cloud platform, is to be able to democratize that entire AI cloud offering across multiple users. I've spent 25 something years in cloud and data centers before I moved into AI a couple of years ago. In cloud, you could actually very clearly see that, all right, here's this demographic, here's this vertical, and those are where the sweet spots are. Here's a heat map of segment and industry usage. That's not necessarily the case in AI, because I don't know if there's a single vertical or segment today that won't benefit from inferencing, for example, right? Sravanth talked about, rural communities, farmers, pick the industry, whether you want to be able to revolutionize law or defense or e-tail or just simple B2B applications to find, the way I would, to cut a long story short, is what are the two value captures that AI gives you today, right? There are only two. You can talk about the benefits till the cows come home, but there are two value captures. The first value capture is efficiency. Time efficiency, cost efficiency, labor efficiency, operational efficiency, right? Your second value capture is innovation and differentiation. That's universal. Anybody who's looking to realize value capture in one of these two buckets is going to be able to need AI services, whether that's, what we do as part of this AI layer cake, or what, some of the other panelists do as well.
And which are some of the common use cases you locally see Indian enterprise are building right now?
It's interesting, and a lot of enterprises today are looking at deploying a multi-model pipeline, not a multimodal, but a multi-model pipeline, which has an LLM always as a very central part of it. We're working with one of India's leading financial institutions that's looking at augmenting its call center capacity with speech to text. That text then gets put into an LLM. The LLM sees what that text was, generates a response, outputs a text response to it, and that's converted back into speech, right? So you have, companies like 11 Labs or Grey Labs or Smallest AI who are doing this, and they do this, and they'll train their models and infer them on, the Neysa Velocis GPU cloud.
Got it. Thanks. Nicolas, if you look at like India, right, and especially India is emerging as like a deep tech innovation hub. We're doing a lot of work around the advanced manufacturing, and multiple basically other sector has been already democratized, right? How you see the convergence of AI and deep tech, which is basically where it can create like some of the transformative, you can say, deep science opportunity in India.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. So thank you for having me. I'm very bullish on India. I think it has an amazing opportunity, and so some of the steps that the ecosystem and the government are taking, are going in the right direction, and I think very much aligned also, with the way Europe is going, particularly kind of around open source. But I think I've heard already a lot the word democratize, from my fellow panelists, and there's the AI summit in February, and India is hosting it this year, and they talk about impact. And I think AI is going to have a massive impact, for India, and it's almost as if India has been preparing, for this for a long time, because the educational stack, to start, has been very much, focused, on computer science. And when you look at the rise of China, I mean, one of the reasons China has been able to rise, so fast is because its pool of talent in computer science is broad. But actually, I would argue that the pool in India is even broader, and that's a very good place to start if you're going to be going around open source and building on top and compounding what is available. There's another thing you talked about, UPI. I mean, I think India was again very bold a few years ago with Aadhaar, and also starting to think about kind of data governance. And if you think about the science field and the medical field, the fact that you made that investment around data governance and around identity will give India a massive edge when it comes to data for medical. A lot of countries are struggling. It becomes a political issue very quickly. But you have actually built the foundation to actually go and deploy AI and more powerful AI to cure things like cancer and other diseases, because you will have the confidence of that data being able to share around AI. So that's very good. The other thing is, if you look at hardware, before it was either hardware or software. People looked tended to look at India as being kind of a software hub, and starting to look at China as being a manufacturing hub. Well, the good news for India is actually software is much more embedded into hardware and manufacturing and robotics, etc. And so I think there is an opportunity for India in robotics, in smart manufacturing, to really kind of catch up. You see it happening in the US. The US is making a big bet around robotics and smart manufacturing, because it's been behind even Europe in terms of manufacturing. India has exactly the same opportunity in front of itself, and I think it has all the talent to be able to do that. And finally, what drives me in all I do in India and generally is I really believe that talent is evenly distributed around the world. What is not is skill and capital. And if we can bring the skill and capital to the talent, we're already winning. That's what we're doing with STEM AI. That's what I'm doing here with my in India with my gaming venture. And so I think there is a massive opportunity in deep tech, but generally because of this impact and democratized approach of India around AI.
Ashwani, you are working on AI governance, right? And if you look at the 80% of the enterprise data, which is essentially, you can say like, which are unstructured data, right? Which is ranged from documents, email, logs, or even you can say audio and images file around that, right? With all, you can say generative AI, which is now driving enterprise to leverage unstructured text. How does this whole AI, you can say native governance structure basically look like in practice, right? And how you are basically helping this enterprise to basically solve this adoption issue with respect to governance and security?
Right. So Vipul, you have touched upon two concepts. One is AI native governance and second is unstructured data governance. Let me take a moment to basically describe what the governance is and what are its dimensions. So there are three concepts involved in data governance when it comes to AI. One is the data governance itself, means what your AI could see, right? You cannot allow AI to see everything because there are some data sets which are extremely sensitive in nature. The second is the AI guardrails, which is essentially means what AI should not say, right? For example, it should not give PI information, it should not say something harmful, it should not say something which is biased. And the third is AI governance itself. If AI is saying something, then someone internally or the enterprise should have a framework so that someone should own it. Well, what kind of a models have been used? If model have been used, what was the version of it? What kind of a data was used for training the model? What kind of a biases enterprise should be aware of the model has. So these are the three dimensions of AI in general for AI governance. But touching upon unstructured data governance becomes essentially extremely important because it is more preventive in nature. It is like fuel to AI, right? While AI guardrails or AI framework for AI governance is more like safety features of the car, right? So we have to provide clean fuel to the car first. And that's where enterprises have to focus a lot on understanding the data fragmentation problems that they have, what kind of data is lying in different silos, how they can understand, catalog the data, clean the data, generate metadata about it, and make sure that the clean data in somewhat structured form goes inside AI. Well, there are again two kind of data governance, probably the models involved in it. One is for structured data, which is much easier to handle. And then there is a messy unstructured data. So first of all, the enterprise have to bring the unstructured data into somewhat structured form and then fuel it to give it to the AI system to further digest it. So yeah, for a successful AI implementation, all these things have to be in place, right from having a right framework for governing AI, having the right guardrails, which is more reactive in nature, and then the preventive approach of the data governance itself, which goes inside AI.
Thanks. I'll again go to Sravanth. Sravanth, if we often hear that India has moved beyond the experimentation, but if you look at like only minority of the basically companies scaled AI beyond the pilot or a POC, right? So what are the factors, either technical, organizational, or per se like market driven, are basically a biggest blocker for moving like from POC to pilot and at a certain scale?
Yeah, I mean, today we do a lot of work across US enterprises, from retail to healthcare to manufacturing to supply chain to logistics and whatnot. Practically think of us as an industry agnostic workflow intelligence platform that creates a central brain for an organization. And the opportunity, like you said, is today most business models are, including in India and in the globe, are deterministically architected, right? Most of the SOPs in the business models have been primarily manual-led, with obviously the digital transformation kind of bringing the ability to connect data or connect information. The shift that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years is shifting from that capability of connecting data and information to actually starting to connect intelligence. I think that's a profound dimension of a step jump to what capability gets unlocked. The degrees of freedom of what you could now do with this capability is immense. So what we kind of do in our at least work is help organizations, rather than do a point solution, think about the overall organizational wide transformation from this deterministic state to a AI native future, right? That's effectively what we do. And you're right. I think someone referred to MI in our conversation right before that. Someone referred, I think it was you. But yeah, MIT kind of put out a paper. I don't think many people on this table would fully agree with that. Having said that, it said 95% of pilots that are happening in enterprises fail, and that's what they call as pilot purgatory, which is the zone that they land up in. And only 5% pilots, according to them, shift into scaled production systems, unlocking value at a large scale. And that's honestly the journey that every enterprise needs to do. And what we've kind of built as Avataar is a platform which allows them to do. So now we're bringing that to India, hopefully to the India AI mission. So hopefully we can democratize what we've been able to do, which is help our clients get to that 5%. And we want to bring that to the masses if we can. Coming back to your specific technical question, I think we have to think about central intelligence. the beauty is that there is emergent capabilities that come out. So when we go into a company, let's take healthcare for an example, right? When we do one workflow and then do another workflow, the intelligence, if it's horizontal, can actually start understanding emergent correlations between the two. And as you keep, and think of your, let's say a company is a country, and each of the workflow, each of the functions and the divisions that are ripe for transformation are states, right? To start with, it's all red implying deterministic. And step by step, brick by brick, you're probably changing each of those states into green, with an end state being all green, right? What we've kind of seen is if you start thinking of ontologies at that overall business model level, rather than saying, okay, only going to look at finance, or only going to look at operations, or only going to let go FTEs, right? All of those kind of objectives are silos, which usually lead people to pilot purgatory. But if you can just take a step back and think before you act, perhaps, plan, have a blueprint of what that end state vision is, have a pecking order of impact and the complexity and your own readiness, allowing you to have an year 1 to year 2 to year 3 plan, at the end of which you're in that end state central brain. That is how you win in this new world. And it takes effort, it takes technical skill, so we work with UC Berkeley in SF, for example, trying to bridge what's happening in academic state-of-the-art inflections and bring that to the actual industry contexts, right? And equally, if you look at what we do a lot of McKinsey kind of work. We are formal partners with Bain, but in most situations, we have to think about process reengineering. We have, one of the reasons why I'm here is I'd love to hire some of you guys. Having said that, we have to build the muscle of being able to go into an organization and advise the board on how do we rethink through with not just mimicking manual SOPs, but actually using the degrees of freedom that AI agency now brings to the table and reimagine how that workflow needs to be. And again, that's where I would end, because that's honestly where most people are committing mistakes today. I think a lot of people actually try to just say, okay, this is what's happening for the last 10 years. This is how my employees were doing it. Let's make AI eliminate some steps in that current SOP. But I think that's not the way you have to go about it. You have to step back and say, I now have degrees of freedoms, which open me up from the cage I was in the digital world. And thereby, how do I now do the true north of that particular workflow without any impact from what was happening yesterday? And that baggage, unfortunately, is where we kind of come in and advise our clients. Hope that.
And how do you see in terms of like this unified AI layer is helping like founders or budding entrepreneurs to identifying the new use cases, or might be this kind of failures from pilot to production? Do you think a role of this whole DPI is going to be play over there?
Yes, certainly. See, I think of, and to Nicolas's point, India has talent density, right? And if you want to achieve the collective mission for the nation that our Honorable Prime Minister has said, it's Viksit Bharat 2047, we probably need a couple of, our plan is one, as in the collective India AI mission plan that we're gearing for is 1 trillion GDP contribution by 2035. If I look at today, IT services maybe 4 trillion annual. SaaS is probably around 800 bill. So I think there's going to be a shift from digital transformation, which led to IT services, into now AI transformation. So our companies need to be upskilled. We have a great opportunity to leverage what Nicolas was saying, which is talent density sitting here, and the need globally. So the guidance that we have from the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Minister Ashwani Vaishnav is, let's focus on probably enabling in the near term productivity unlock for India, but in the process upskill every single person so that tomorrow it's built in India for the world. And we will need to do that, right? We've already done that with UPI, we've done that with Aadhaar, we've done that with digital transformation. The world doesn't need to tell us we're good at math and science, guys. We are in the mecca of what I would call the toughest place to be in the world, right? And we need to leverage that rigor that we've all gone through from our literally class 1 into meaningful value, which is where I think UAI will start playing the role. I think you'll see us first focusing on the Indian productivity unlock, which is needed. But then equally, we'd probably, and thereby, as I said, 2 buckets. One is the citizens, and one is people who already have the tech skills. Now, for them, we'll have to really think through how do we bring DeepSeek's distillation as a platform offering for an engineer who has data, thanks to Ashwani, and then that clean data can be leveraged to distill down a teacher model, which is maybe the largest language model that's out there, right? 1 trillion state-of-the-art model out there, into something that's task specialized, domain specialized, such that you can unlock the inference costs that I think he would be talking more about, and you could probably get to a much better accuracy than what plain vanilla LLM is going to give you. So that's just an analogy. There are 100 such technical aspects where an engineer would need a platform of our nature. And we are obviously thinking about two user personas. One, someone who just doesn't know anything, in which case it has to be a very intuitive interface. Think about a farmer talking in Gujarati to showcasing a plant in their live camera feed and asking, what disease is this? How do I mitigate what's happening, right? From there to actually maybe an engineer coming on the platform and being able to distill down a ex-teacher model into a specific student model for a particular transformation use case. So that's how we're thinking about it.
Thanks. Karan, now we see there is a rise of neo cloud and specialized cloud infrastructure, more focus on AI compute, right? How this neo cloud basically offer, you can say, a platform or advantage to the people who are actually building new use cases, either enterprise or SME in India?
Okay, that's a great question. So, firstly, just for the benefit of the audience, neoclouds are the newer generation of more specialized clouds. So, for example, a cloud like Neysa that is catering specifically to AI workloads through mass deployment of GPUs is considered to be a neocloud, as compared to general purpose clouds like your large hyperscalers that offer you a raft of different services, and they will cover every single use case imaginable. Neoclouds are specialists who cater to more specific use cases like AI, for example. The neoclouds are fundamentally in a better position to be able to cater to a specific workload, say like AI, because I think they're unburdened by legacy in a way. If anybody who's worked with cloud or data center will know that from a architecture standpoint, the way you architect for a AI cloud, for example, or a high performance compute environment is going to be very, very different from the way you would architect, say, it for a ERP application, right? Or a typical general purpose private cloud, which is what a hyperscaler is at 100,000 times the scale. But when you're unburdened by that legacy, you can architect your data center, your network, your compute stack, your software stack, grounds up to be able to cater specifically to this. That again comes back to what I talked about earlier, which is value capture, right? And that will give you efficiency value capture and differentiation value capture as well as compared to general purpose clouds. It's not that the hyperscalers can't do this. They obviously have a little more inertia in their flywheel to be able to do that because they have to go back and re-architect from scratch. And for them, that's like, the turning radius of a super tanker. Some can do it faster than others. But the neoclouds can be a lot more nimble and a lot more agile to be able to do this. And what that helps us do is to be able to cater to a lot of the use cases. And I think Ashwani and, everyone, Sravanth and Nicolas have all touched upon some of those use cases. The use cases are actually phenomenal, right? We've worked with one of India's leading corporate law firms. And this corporate law firm, the example, it was so simple and was elegant. I have 5 automotive clients. Let's assume that they are Tata, Mahindra, Kia, and say, I don't know, pick a fourth one, right? Hyundai. And let's assume tomorrow I sign, somebody else. 95% of all the work that I'm going to do for this 5th client has already been done for the other 4 automotive clients that I have. So how can I find value capture and efficiency by just simply prompting a chat GPT-like interface? Because law firms, trust me, are not technologists, right? They're as far removed from technologists as you can imagine. to be able to say, I need to create an affidavit for, let's assume BYD or whoever, or Tata Motors, refer the last, several affidavits I've made, and write something specific with these prompts for this particular client. And now, to Sravanth's point, you don't need a large language model to be able to do that. You don't need something with 70 or 100 or 200 or billion parameters or 600 billion parameters. You don't even probably really need reasoning. You will need small language models, 4, 7, 10, 12 billion parameter models that have been fine-tuned very, very well on the existing data, right? So for example, what Ashwani is doing with Productive is you take existing unstructured data, which is going to be hundreds of thousands of these legal documents that this firm has written, which are its own intellectual property, and then you train the model on that data, build your guardrails, and put effective security, compliance, guardrails, and governance around how the data was used, how the model was fine-tuned, and what is the output that it provided. But to be able to do that, you need a provider like Neysa who's going to give you that entire stack, and not just the data center with the GPUs and the network, and then, oh, now you have at it. What you do with it is not our concern. Yes, that is one flavor of cloud. But what we do is we work more at a solution level with our clients to say that, how can we help you implement that use case, right? Oh, by the way, this is something you're looking for. We work with Productive to, help you do this, pipeline development, and to be able to ingest your data, to be able to drive the outcomes that you want, right? So it's very easy when we talk about AI to get lost in terms of what part of AI you're talking about. Because you have 4 people over here who represent distinct, tiers of this AI layer cake, right? But they all go hand in hand with each other. But what each one of us do is perhaps a little different. But all 4 will be the cogs in this machine that contribute to the outcome.
And Karan, do you have any right now a product offering for basically budding entrepreneurs who want to come on the Neo Cloud and test it out? Might be a prototype or MVP to
We do.
that.
We have a startup acceleration program. So we do offer credits to some of our startup, more bootstrapped clients as well. People who want to work with us, budding entrepreneurs, very small teams. Being a startup ourselves, obviously our startup programs aren't necessarily as well funded as some of the hyperscale giants, but we do work with some of our clients to help. How do we, what is our contribution towards accelerating your flywheel? We actually do have quite a well-structured program to be able to do that.
Thanks, Karan. Nicolas, so if you look at AI value chain, which is very vast, spanning from, like, you can say, chip design, infrastructure, to application layer, right? And you basically have scanned like global ecosystem of AI. What are some of the massive white spaces that you are very excited about, where you can see like Indian founders are well positioned in terms of solving those problem statements?
Yeah, so I think one of the ones I talked about before is actually smart manufacturing. I think there's there's a lot of scope in India to actually kind of boost actually the manufacturing sector using AI and robotics, and also it has the scale in terms of the workforce to kind of generate proprietary data that will allow manufacturing to scale. I mean, one of the hottest sector at the moment in AI is world models. Yann Lequin has just departed Meta to do his own company. General Intuition is actually leveraging its all data moat around video games to actually kind of build kind of autonomy. And I think this is a place where when you have 20% of the world population, you probably had a pretty significant advantage to build your own data moat, to actually kind of go towards autonomy. And so when we go beyond autonomy in manufacturing, there's just autonomy, in self-driving. There is, autonomy in defense. You have some challenging neighbors, and I think there's a big commitment, from the government to spend in defense. DARPA was very significant, in its, funding of, innovation in the US. So I think autonomy generally, much beyond smart manufacturing with, self-driving, with, defense is sectors that I'm, really, keen to invest and deploy capital, in India with, because, I think you will do, very well, and the talent is there. But more generally, I think we failed to realize how much, the fact that there is a dominant culture, call it the Hollywood culture, call it Captain America, kind of forces kind of a glass ceiling on all of us outside the US. I mean, you all remember a couple of years ago, Sam Altman was asked, by Sequoia partner, what should India do in foundational model, and he replied in a non-aggressive way. He just said, just forget it, just don't even try, and I think, I think that's just the fact that he says that, and he says it's like, absolutely naturally doesn't, not seeing the offensive part of it, it comes down to, to culture. I think Captain America, loses to Hanuman or Lord Ram every day of the week. So, just believe in, what you can do, and don't actually think you have a ceiling.
Great, thanks, Nicolas. So Ashwani, I think I have a very specific question for you in terms of like AI adoption in enterprises, right? So what are the basically, when you are right now going or basically selling to this product to the enterprises, right? What are the common, you can say, challenges you find in terms of the adoption? If you can also specifically, basically also talk about, is there any industry who are actually adopting AI much faster? And what are the, basically, you can say, some of the learning for other industry to follow out of it?
Right. Well, first of all, if we look at AI, it's not monolithic. A lot of people, when they see AI, they see it's a monolithic thing, and sometimes we generally get biased by Gen AI. We think Gen AI is the AI, right? India has done pretty well in AI, by the way. And if I talk about the other aspects of AI like machine learning, deep learning, or pre-Gen AI kind of a AI, then sectors like BFSI has done really, really well in India, right? And not just BFSI, but other sectors have also adopted it quite nicely. But we have not been able to put much of research in, let's say, building fundamental models or coming up with new architectures for Gen AI, and that's okay. I mean, people are doing it, and there's a lot more to do. Well, India can do it sometime later. What I have seen is, when it comes to the challenges, there are certain challenges because, and these are not specific to India, these are probably like global challenges, that enterprises are still struggling with what kind of a data they have, right? And some of the data are lying in silos all across. Organization does not have a catalog to even search it or to look for it in right place. So this fragmentation of data is creating too many challenges within enterprises. Second is obviously the data governance problem itself. And then there has been a lot of issues around credibility of Gen AI, which has put doubts in the mind. And while there are some useful use cases where adoption has been really, really good, which is vibe coding, many enterprises have already adopted platforms like Cursor or VS Studio with Gen AI capabilities, which can generate code now at 10x speed. But there is a practical challenge to it. I mean, we have faced internally as well, and I've seen with many enterprises whom I'm in touch with, people are generating code at 10x speed, but their review speed is not even 2x. So if you see the impact, it's not much, right? So it means that we need to do a lot more to make an AI project successful, right? While I read that MIT report, which you mentioned, though the title says that 95% of the projects have failed, But I would say that 95% of the projects were not as successful as enterprises expected, right? They chose the wrong word, fail, but they were not failed project as such. But they were projects which were designed keeping happy flow in mind, right? But in reality, there is no happy flow. There are always edge cases. There are always challenges with the data, with the workflow. And what I am seeing today, many enterprises, they are trying to replace a workflow which was created by humans or for humans, by AI, right? While AI is more of a probabilistic, kind of a system, when human workflows are more deterministic in nature, right? Means that we need to fill in some gaps to utilize this probabilistic system to have a more deterministic output. Means that there are augmenting, we need to augment this technology by building some pieces in and around, let's say, a model, so that the workflow becomes more deterministic in nature, just the way humans work. So those are some of the challenges which enterprises across the globe are facing, and where I think it's the onus is up to us. How do we define that framework so that they could plug in the right technology, they could build the right capabilities internally, and identify that what are the things that they should not expect out of AI, and what are the things that they should keep in mind. So that's why I always emphasize on three things which are really, really important. One is data governance, AI governance, and then third is having better guardrails for a AI system. Apart from that, enterprises across India and across the globe has to understand some of the technological limitation with AI. There are a lot of limitations with it, right? And then we have to redesign and reimagine the workflows while we use AI. So those are the few things that I believe enterprises are still struggling with, but a lot of enterprises have started realizing it also. And that's a good part.
And Ashwani, I think in the morning you are talking about, you are very excited about AI native basically solutions, right? So can you a little bit talk about your perspective, how you are looking that market, and if you can a little bit also put a comparison around the models and why you believe this can be game changing for Indian perspective?
Oh, this is definitely going to be a game changer for India because India has really been great at developing applications. We are champions in the world, right? We have built applications for India. I mean, a lot of, if you see GCCs in India, they're building application for their parent company and for the globe, right? So we understand application development really, really well, right? But when it comes to AI, the initial reaction across the globe was to augment the existing application with some Gen AI capabilities, which was more like integrating a chatbot to their system. And nobody would pay for it, frankly speaking. Right? Having a chatbot in your Jira or having a chatbot in your Confluence or in Notion doesn't add much of a value, right? While if you think of creating an application where AI is native to the application, you are redefining the workflows like AI native ERP systems, AI native accounting systems, or AI native CRMs. Probably you could add a lot more value, increasing the efficiency for humans who are operating such kind of a systems. So there is a lot more to be done in AI native applications. So likewise, if you see ChatGPT Atlas browser, which is the AI native browser, we are seeing some of the e-commerce websites now building that workflow, which is AI native workflow for ordering products from the platform. I mean, those are the things that I would see is a great opportunity for India at present, having AI native applications for different sectors.
I think a lot of people don't understand this whole playbook of GTM, especially if you are building for some of the developed market, right? So any insight, any basically learning you want to share?
Priyanka will tell you I've learned a lot because I failed a lot. But to be honest, that's how you learn. The India-US corridor is what we call it. And go to market, just in case someone's confused with the jargon of GTM. All it means is go to market, where you have a capability in India and you're selling to US. I think India-US corridor, honestly, thankfully to the previous generation, is a strong area of economic flow already, right? We sell digital. We today probably are coming to a point where we can actually start building products, not just services, build them in India and be able to take it to the world. Still hasn't seen full potential, but I think that's where India is headed. So there's already an economic flow. There is SaaS from India that's done the same. There's IT services from India that's done the same. So I don't think there's rocket science, honestly. And it's not like something that we are for the first time encountering, but it's challenging. It's challenging in multiple different ways. From cultural sensitivity, which you would need as a salesperson in those rooms where decision makers are making decision. And usually what I've, at least in my experience, seen is 95% of the decision is on trust. And trust comes after you earn your respect. So, and that, in that respect is your solution, it's your value proposition, it's how prepared you are, how much, like we've invested 55 million from Sequoia and Tiger Global into the platform. All of those things would matter, right? And so really the name of the game is how do you, as a founder sitting in, say, Bangalore, are able to convince, say, a founder CEO in Dallas that he should trust your team to be able to do the most important thing that his board is asking you to, which is AI transformation. And that's honestly the challenge that we deal with. I'm sure you would have had some experience, so please do comment after me. But my experience has been that. And what I've realized is you have to become a global sales engine. You cannot keep the GTM as only India. It doesn't work. In fact, what I've realized is just US alone is 4 different, very, very different sales environments. In some places, you probably have to speak Spanish. If you don't, it's going to be counted against you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not proud of it, but that's the reality, right? So you have to figure out those nuances and have those local folks in the time zone. Time zones matter a lot. No client paying you $10 million a year will, expect you to be there when he needs them. You can't say, oh, you know what, I'm sleeping, let me talk once I'm up. Hopefully there's an overlap between your and my time. Those things don't work. So you'll need to build a front. We call it forward deployed engineers. These, in my case, are primarily a mix of management consulting, process reengineering acumen, and a mix of architecting AI transformation for any workflow you pick. And there enough talent there for that purpose. And Palantir has done a brilliant job in making that. So we're just following that playbook. In India, what we've seen is the talent is really good. I can today probably get a IISc or an IIT Bombay, my alma mater's PhD, to a Stanford or a Berkeley PhD in 6 months. I'll repeat that. When I say Avataar, has the ability to train a PhD in IISc or say IIT Bombay to get to the same level as a Stanford PhD in literally 6 months. So we also have to think outside the box. We'll have to probably start giving that opportunity, upskilling those guys. So a lot of effort around even India to bring them up to the valley level of 10x engineers. At least when I started my journey at Microsoft Seattle, there was this whole thing, are you a 10x guy? No, right? I don't want to see you next year. Didn't happen to me, thankfully. But yeah, that's the kind of culture that we will have to create. We'll have to probably do it as a collective. One company won't be enough. As I said, I actually think AI transformation is connecting intelligence, so it'll be much larger than the IT services 4 trillion pie that we see today globally. How much of a share of that can we play with, I think would be a huge GDP contributor in the direction that we are headed. So those are the, it's not just GTM, it's also delivery and client success, so I'm covering both aspects. There's one sale, and then you literally have to ensure client success. You have to ensure that the perception of success is high, and you have to ensure that that is what's funding the next couple of years. So there is an art to it, and there's a science to it. Again, happy to take this offline because I could write a book on how many times I failed trying to sell from India to US. Having said that, just be there, be persistent. You learn every day, and as long as you improve 1% every day, matter of time before you get into a motion that's looking like self-fulfilling prophecy. But I'll probably pass on because I'm sure Ashwani.
Yeah, Ashwani, you want to add? Might be you already have, like in previous Avataar, you have sold enterprise product, right? So
Avataar is the best name I could have given any my company. Literally, fits everything.
You want to add anything, like, because in your previous journey you also have tried to, or you already have sold products, enterprise products in the US market. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, if you have a great product, I don't think it is that difficult to sell. If you could challenge anyone outright, right? It's not that difficult to sell. It takes some time for you to sell, but you have to focus on building a true IP, right? And if it's a genuine product, it takes some time to convince. But if you are confident about your product, I don't think it's that difficult to sell. And that's how we could manage to catch hold of Precisely, which was far away from us, but we were denting their market. We were hurting them too.
Karan, same question for India GTM. What are some of the insights, some of the learning, and especially you are actually working or your competition is with the larger players. I don't know like, how you see that.
No, it is very much with the hyperscalers. But look, given your question, right, Vipul, I could tell you that, focus on the sovereign AI needs. Every country in the world, rightly so, considers AI to be a sovereign asset, right? You literally have heads of state talking about, we consider AI to be a sovereign asset, so therefore we want to have our own data centers. And then you have, Donald Trump saying, I'm going to embargo all the GPUs and put not duties and all of that. Sure, great, but I think let's take it back to fundamentals for a second, right? And I want to touch upon something that Ashwani said. When you talk about GTM, what most people get wrong is they look at what the sales and the marketing part of the GTM is. What you've done is you've skipped the most important step, and this is something that Ashwani touched upon. What you need to get is your product market fitment. If your product market fit is flawed, you could have the best sales motion, the best marketing motion in the world, you will fail. Bank on that, right? The product market fit is essential. What is the need that you're fulfilling? What was the gap that you want to be able to address? How you've architected your product to be able to meet that gap. And then you get into your things like your TAM, SAM, SOM, which most of you will know what those are. But the most important thing is the product market fitment. It's shocking. Look, this is me talking my own book as a chief product officer, but what I found shocking is that most product-led organizations don't write a PRD anymore. I mean, I don't understand how that happens. How do you start building? How do you start engineering without having first written a PRD that covers what you're trying to build, how you're going, why you're trying to build it, and how you plan on building it? To me, that is the most important part of a GTM, because everything stems from there. And if this is rotten, everything that you build on top of it is going to be rotten. That's the best advice I can give you. Get a good product manager and get him to write a good PRD. Everything else builds on top.
Thanks, Karan. Nicolas, we have discussed like India has all right ingredients, talent, data, and many things right to offer. What you have observed, like especially for like some of the budding entrepreneurs who are starting, any specific gap you see which might founder has to act on? Especially I'm talking about the very early stage companies where you see that.
No, I think it's a journey, right? People forget, even a company like Mistral, happens because DeepMind and Fair set up labs in Paris, and so the whole kind of ML talent in France was very strong, and these guys came out of DeepMind and came out of Meta and founded Mistral, and so many others follow. And I think there is a lot of talk about sovereign, but there's actually very different pathway for an ecosystem to build. There are always gaps, and as there is innovation, there's gaps and opportunities. And I think what's interesting is if you look at AI specifically in the context of India, we've just gone through go-to-market. You have entrepreneurs that have done go-to-market using the Palantir playbook of forward deployed engineers. You have people that work at Palantir that is actually going to work now at a Indian startup the same way they're doing in other parts of the world, and that's all very good. You have Anthropic opening an office in India, same with OpenAI, etc. So I think whatever develops the talent is actually a positive and will help you fill the gap. So take what ever help comes. There's many ways. There's capital, there's skills, there's foreign companies, there's a homegrown company, and I think all of this will build the gap. The last thing I would say, I mean, in terms of course, we're at an intersection here in terms of, we talked about small models. I mean, cost as an issue, and so people are trying to do smaller model, fine tune, etc., etc. We talked a lot about structured, unstructured data. The thing is, the intelligence is getting so powerful. I mean, yeah, initially you want to structure things and to just be able to apply AI to the smallest kind of economical units. But on the other hand, we haven't seen yet what it's capable of and the pathways that it's capable of. And I think things are going to change with that at the very beginning, which is what is so exciting. So there's gaps for everyone, and let's just go and build and iterate on building.